So what's up YouTube? In today's video, we're gonna get into some of the things or tools rather that I use on a day-to-day basis as a software engineer. So if you're new to the channel, make sure you hit the subscribe button below. Also hit the like button, definitely helps out my channel. And without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the video. So to get started, the first thing I wanna go over that I use on a day-to-day basis, which should be obvious to anyone who's been watching my channel, is XCode. As an iOS engineer, you have to use XCode. It's an IDE in which all software engineers that are iOS developers use in order to write any piece of code that we're wanting to deploy out to the public. So let me give you a brief overview of XCode. So in XCode, you have your files on your left-hand side, and then you write your code in the middle. And then on the right-hand side is pretty much where you can go to make some small modifications to different things associated to the files that you have and so forth. So for XCode, I have my model view controller, and I also got to say this is a very, very old project. For anyone who's looking at this is in no way, shape, or form anywhere close to the type of code I would usually write for work. Just want to put that out there. This is not my code from work. This is like code I think I wrote probably like 7 years ago, well, a couple of years ago. Oh, what you can see here, this is back from 2015, so this is really, really old. So inside of here, I have just different files that I have set up. In XCode, you can have assets, and which those will be your images that you'll be having inside of your project. Also with Xcode, you can also do a couple of cool things. Like for here, I think I'm using a specific theme, so you guys probably can't see it, but let me see if I can bring up the themes that I have inside of Xcode. So let me go to themes here, and yeah, so these are all the themes that I've downloaded. I'll leave a link below on these themes that I've downloaded. I use these themes in all the projects that I work on just because it's a little bit easier to work with and read. I don't typically like the basic theme that Xcode gives you right out the box. Some of those I'm not too fond of. My very most favorite theme is Space Gray. And I think the other one that I love to use all the time is, let me see if I can find it here. Yes, this one, I think. And I also do these as well, some of the other ones. But I'm gonna leave a link below in the bottom of the video so you guys can look at that, see which themes you like to work with or like to play with. And yeah, I think having a specific theme inside your project just makes it much easier and cool to work with when you're writing down code. If you have a basic theme or you have something that you don't particularly like, it kind of dampers the mood a little bit when you're sitting there trying to write code. But yeah, so all in all, I use Xcode. That's the main thing I use on a day-to-day basis. So another tool that I use sometimes for work would be Postman. So inside of Postman, I can't show you guys everything, but inside of Postman, you can make a lot of different types of requests. And then you could pretty much set up how you want to process your request. You can pass in different pieces of data, and when you process your request, I don't think this will work, but let me just see here. Yeah, it's gonna tell me something like this not working inside of here. Let me see if I can just type in something that's fake and just do a get request here. Yeah, so you can see the request. It'll give you different pieces of information inside of here, cookies, headers, and so forth. And inside of here, if you want to pass in other information, inside the body before you make a request, is really good. Typically, this is used a lot for mostly back-end engineers, but as a front-end developer, it does come in handy in a lot of ways, especially if you're wanting to test things out to make sure the request is working properly, what type of data you're getting back after you make a request, and so forth. It comes in, like I said, it comes in really in handy. Postman is great. If you have never used it before, I'm gonna leave a link down below about Postman, just for those who want to try it out, see how it works. Again, it's great for APIs. If you're a backend developer and you're creating your own APIs, trust me, you're gonna need Postman. It comes pretty much in handy. It comes in handy with doing any type of request. So I use it for personal projects as well as I use it at work from time to time. So it's just another tool that I use on a day-to-day basis. All right. So the second tool I use the most, more than anything, will be Gitkraken. So Gitkraken is the #1 thing I use. Again, this is a fake project that I have set up. Obviously, I'm not gonna be able to show you guys the project I work on for work. So Git cracking is really good for being able to move your changes that you're going to be doing in Git and pushing out to your branches that you can have other developers take a look into and review your code. So if you never used Git before, you may want to go through a tutorial on Git. But in this, I'm just showing you that I do use Git cracking. It has a lot of really nice tools in Git cracking that I love the most. The number one specific thing that I love the most is the fact that, say I have this file here, I can click on it, I can verify the changes that's going on. After I verify my changes, I can, go ahead and close this out, as well as pretty much everything that you typically can do in Git, you can do inside of Git cracking. I know other people use like source trees, some of these other things that are pretty good, but for me, I really like Git cracking. Another thing with Git cracking is the fact I still have the terminal here, so I can, make changes, look at my changes and so forth. Another thing is after I modify changes, these changes do populate over here on the right hand panel, and on the right hand side, I can go to the bottom and, make my changes to see if I want to commit the changes or remove those changes or so forth. Also, you have these buttons up here at the top, which you can do several things such as undo, pull, push, branch, stash, pop, or just pop up the terminal. So I love this. I love Git cracking much more than source tree. It just gives you a lot more functionality inside of Git cracking that honestly in source tree, I just didn't get right outside the box. By no way this is sponsored by Git cracking or nothing like that. I just want to just say that, I truly do love using Git cracking, and it works for me on a day-to-day basis. All right, so some of the other tools I use that unfortunately I really can't show you guys, but I'll try to leave links below in the bottom of the video, or I'll post little things up here, is probably Proxyman. So Proxyman is really good. So it pretty much allows you to proxy your requests that you're going to be getting. Say you're an iOS developer and you want to see the network request that's coming through on the device or even on your computer. What's great with Proxyman is you can see those requests come through, and when those requests will come through, you can be able to see the data that comes back, as well as if you wanted to map locally that data. Say you're working on an API, or say you're working with the backend developer, but the API isn't quote unquote ready as of yet, but you still wanted to make sure that the data works as it should be. What you can do is get the JSON that is supposed to be coming inside the request, map it locally on your Proxyman setup, and after you map everything locally, then you can actually see the data come through and then be mapped to the device. So when the data comes through, you see all the data that's going to be coming from the request. And then from there, you can actually go ahead and continue building out whatever you're going to be building, such as that new feature you're going to be working on, or something old, or so forth. So I use Proxyman pretty much almost every day for the most part in my process of doing iOS development, because we do have times where maybe the backend isn't working, or the backend hasn't completed an API, and I still want to try to go ahead and get the data inside the app, or at least map it locally, or mock it, quote unquote. That's a better word to say. Pretty much mock the data. I can use Proxyman to mock the data, and it works seamlessly. I don't have any issues out of it. In the past, I have used Charles. Charles is pretty good too, but Charles versus Proxyman, Proxyman is just way better. Number one, you don't have all those headaches you run into with Charles at times. Nothing against using Charles for those that do use it, but I just personally like Proxyman better. That's just my personal opinion. If you've never used it before, I say give it a try. It's really good. I love using it on a day-to-day basis, and it's great for, like I said, just mapping the data that you need. You can see the network request that's coming through. If you're a web developer and you want to see network requests that come through, it's great for that as well. And yeah, I use it almost every single day. A couple other tools I use on a day-to-day basis would be Slack. Unfortunately, I can't show you guys Slack because I can't show you guys, the conversations I have at work. But Slack is great. It helps me and my team stay in communication with one another. And if you don't use Slack, you can't use other tools, but I feel like Slack is one of the greatest. It's one of the ones, like I said, again, I use on a day-to-day basis. Most companies, I think, tend to use Slack. If they don't use Slack, they probably use something like Teams or something else. I think Teams is through Microsoft. Slack, to me, is way better. Like, I love using it. You can have GIFs you can throw into Slack, different memes or whatever. You can use emojis and so forth. So Slack is really cool, really easy to use, really intuitive. And yeah, I love using it. And one of the last tools I use on a day-to-day basis, which I can show also, is Figma. So I use Figma to get the designs from the designer. So our designers may use Figma or some other tool, and after getting those designs, we can go through the process of, making sure that we have the constraints correct, whatever the colors are for the design or how things should look. We can pretty much almost map it one-to-one, and it's much easier to see how things should be looking when you're building out the UI versus what the designer has built out. So it's also another good conversation piece inside of Figma. You can leave comments and talk to the designer to ask questions if you're not wanting to talk to the designer through Slack, or you can't and you guys don't have that third party setup for you to talk to someone else. Figma is great for that. It's also good for doing like design reviews. If you are a designer and you want an engineer to review your designs, Figma works great for that. And I love using it. I use it on personal projects or freelance projects that I work on the side. So yeah, Figma is cool. I don't know the pricing of Figma off the top of my head. I know it's not free, but most companies tend to use it. If they don't use Figma, then they probably use like some of the other tools out there. But yeah, Figma is number one that we use. So outside of that is pretty much it. I think that pretty much wraps up the video. I want to thank you guys for watching it. Again, if you're new to the channel, make sure you hit the subscribe button below, hit the like button, helps me out, and I'll see you guys in the next video. See you.